Welcome to Many Millions, where we focus on the many reps and the million moments it takes to build a trading career.
Welcome back, traders. As I said before, I want to get into a little bit of a different way to do these videos. I'm still going to be fully transparent with you every step of the way, but little less time needed to create these videos and put some focus back on my main channel rather than this series that I seem to be really struggling with. And given the government shutdown, was probably not the best time to start this series of an A versus B brand new prop firm setups. But that being said, I'm also dealing emotionally with a little bit more, just a little bit more volatility, and that's definitely been a factor here. So let's get into it. So I've started off the week pretty badly, I would say. If you remember, this is where we left off last month. You go over here. Ended up $565 in the red between the two accounts last week. And now this month I'm already $493 in the red. So let me scale this back a little bit. I'll show you what's going on here in my 031. This is my B setup account first. Got a 42% hit rate, 0.56 profit factor. I don't like to pay that much attention to the profit factor. I've said that multiple times. So I had a decent trade here, a $38 trade, and the kicker here is that I am just so anxious getting into the volatility of this market. If you look at this trade, there was zero reason to get out, but I was not able to hold it and paid dearly for it. So I had a short entry here, and I was coming off of a quick one here that ended up being a break even, right? So this one here, and then I got out pretty much the next candlestick, and it went all the way to the bottom of the range. So terrible trade. I think, in fact, I wanted to give myself 1.5 stars. But you can see my emotions here. I was anxious, FOMO, greedy, lack of confidence. Dopamine is what I was chasing. Even when I cut it, it was mixed. I wanted more. And when I want more, I do recognize that emotion. And I immediately say, I have to cut this. Because if I'm getting that emotional, that greedy, that just doesn't end well for me. So even when I look at this and kind of regret not holding the trade, I know why I exited, and I still stand by that. Here we had a $158 loss. This is just one that didn't go in my favor, and that happens. You're not going to win them all. That's okay. If we can get Tradezella to load for us here. Not sure what's going on, but this was a long, and again, feeling anxious, FOMO. I was very hesitant, lack of patience. So not a good trade there. In fact, I gave myself a worse score on that one. Apologize, it's not loading that up. We'll come back to it in just a second. This one was really more of a break even. I could tell I was still anxious. I could tell I shouldn't be in this trade. And so when I had the chance to exit, I did. Now, yes, it ticked up a little bit, but really it kind of just chopped around. No regrets there. Let's see if this one will load up for us now. Started to. And then it just went away. Shouldn't have to zoom in and scroll like this. But yeah, long here. It just was not a good setup. I shouldn't have been entering this trade. So that was my B setups for Monday. I'll walk you through my B setups for Tuesday, and then we can go into the A setups. All right, B setups for Tuesday. At $178 loss here. This one was just reading the direction wrong, as you can clearly see. I hoped it would come down here. It kind of bounced up, crossed over the 9 EMA, then would come back down. And it certainly did not. It went on a tear yesterday, and that was the moment that it was going the complete opposite direction of where I was. Again, this trade, emotions are coming into play. I'm coming off of a heavy loss of $178. So even though I scaled in, you see that I didn't even hold to the top of this candle. Now it stopped nowhere near the top of the candle. I got my B setup entry, and I just didn't hold it. A lot of that's coming from, again, my emotions coming off of this bigger trade, lack of confidence, and I've been playing around with my indicator, which I'll cover in another video, but trying to figure out how I can get myself in a rules-based checklist rather than letting these emotions get the best of me like they're doing. Let's switch over to my 030 account. Okay, I've switched over to my 030 account. I'm going to back up to Monday. So my 030 account, I've got a 46% hit rate. Profit factor is 0.72. Here on Monday, I had 2 trades, and you can say they were. This was a tough day for me. I had a near $300 loss, and if you remember, my daily loss limit is actually 300. So I was allowed to enter, but I couldn't let it pull against me very much at all after that. So this is coming off of a big push down. Hoped this was the bottom, but it just wasn't. It kept going down quite a bit, and then it finally consolidated up in here. But you can see I was long here, took my stop loss down to there. Not really much I can do with that one. I was even anxious in this one and more hopeful than confident. That's just not a good way to be. So disappointed there. I did follow my plan, but I have very mixed emotions about this one. Second trade Monday on the A setups was a pretty decent trade here. And the reason I would call it a pretty decent trade is I'm not sure there's a whole lot else I could have done with it. It was an A setup, but I called the top of the range, took my profits, and not much else I could have done. I had this A setup crossover. I realized the market was getting exhausted up here already. I was overbought on my 9 stochastic. So I went ahead and took my profits, and it continued to fall back down. I hoped to get in for a re-entry here on a double bottom, but that just never happened. It never appeared. I never got divergence. But more confident in this one. Even during the trade, though, I was scared that I could tell it was running out of steam. So took $107 profit there, offset some of the loss. Let's get into Tuesday. I don't know why it's going back to Friday. And get back into my dashboard here and get to Tuesday. So here we are on Tuesday. Here I had a $160 loss, as you can see. Cut it a little bit early, and that's okay. The reason I would say this was a better trade and gave myself 2.5 stars was more my emotional state. I was calm. I was hopeful. Yes, it started to pull against me really quickly, so during the trade I'm going to be anxious. I'm going to be hesitant, scared. But I had discipline. I followed my plan. And I can't really fault myself for that. That's the best I can do is I have my signal, I have my conditions, I enter, it doesn't work out. Those are pretty emotionless trades, or ideally they should be, right? You just say, you win some, you lose some, move on. This one you can see 93% of its total duration in negative P&L. It was in drawdown almost the entire time. Only at one point was I up $10 on this trade, so it just wasn't a good trade. Didn't go my way. This one was an interesting one. I gave myself a terrible score here. I've got 1 star. Could have even gone half a star. Should not have been in this trade. It was not the right conditions for an A+ setup. It was the right conditions for a B setup, and it worked. But that's not, first of all, that's not the goal of this series, right? The goal of this series is that I should only be taking A setups on this A setup account. So didn't realize which account I was on, made a mistake, and that's why I immediately cut this one. On top of the fact that I actually wouldn't have thought it was going to continue down like that. My normal B setups, I don't hold that long. So lack of patience, anxious, and that's why I entered. I had a lack of patience even on my A setup account. So very disappointed there in me not following my rules that this is an A setup only account. that's kind of been my week so far. I'm going to keep these coming, and we will continue to work through the remainder of the week. And I'll show you another video where I'm kind of tweaking my indicator to focus more on the opening range 15 minutes and not give so many false signals. I think the false signals are adding to my FOMO, and because of the government shutdown and the volatility inside of MES, it's just too much for me to look at all of these signals and also try to keep myself emotionally in check. Let it run. I'm just struggling with all of it emotionally. So doing a full reset, revising my indicator, and I'll keep you guys posted.